And it's Roman Bodnarchuk here from the Strategic AI Coach. We're going to be going live in about 10 minutes, but I thought we'd just do a little preamble. Some of the reasons I want to do this show were over the past 40 years, I've seen some incredible technology evolve. And I'll just give you some examples. I remember my dad bought the first version of the Mac. It was the first Mac. It was just a cute computer. And there wasn't that much you could do with it. It was just this really cute computer. It came out in 1984. My dad got it in 1985. And it was just a fun computer to play with. But I did take that computer with me to University of Western Ontario. And I remember I was one of the few kids that had a computer. And at the same time, there was this modem that came out, this 1200 baud modem, made a lot of noise. And the only thing you could do with it in my first year at Western was you could use the internet. It took like 10 minutes to turn it on, get it working. But you could log into the school library, which was actually across the street from my residence. But what I was able to do is see if the book that I wanted was actually, there. So it saved me, walking across the street, getting the book, or going over there and finding out the book's not there. So for me, it was useful. But what I thought was really interesting was I started thinking about, well, these modems are going to get faster. And as the modems get faster, they're going to get more useful. There'll be more people using this. So I kind of got the idea early on that this was going to be a game changer. Around the same time, I met a mortgage broker. My parents introduced me to a fantastic lady named Elaine Peary, and she was a mortgage broker. And how she used technology was, it took a long time, but she was able to use a computer to create these monthly. If you're a mortgage broker and you've got to create like over a 25-year period, how much people have to pay, how much is the actual equity, how much is they're actually paying an interest. Every month that number changes. So it would take her hours upon hours to do this kind of menial task. So at the time I had a spreadsheet. I don't know if it was Excel, but it was like an Excel. And I was able to, basically create the formula once and then run it through. It took me a few minutes. Now, she didn't, I guess, realize that it only took me a few minutes. I was able to charge like $100 every time we did it. So super useful to her. And I'd also print it out on the beautiful laser paper. So she loved it. But those are the first two times I kind of saw technology evolve. So number one was the internet, how it was useful to me and how I thought it was going to get more useful. And then how I saw a traditional, mortgage broker just do old fashioned, accounting the way they did it, and able to just do it in minutes with a spreadsheet. So when I left Western, I started my first business, first selling water filters and air filters. And I was lucky to learn about sales and grew that business. Really, I wouldn't say there was any technology involved. The only technology we used back then was we used videos. So to create a sales team, which I built, hundreds of people in different cities around North America, it's very hard to teach people how to sell. But I was able to teach them how to press play on a VCR. For those who don't know what a VCR is, it's how we should watch videos. So by teaching the sales team, press play, and the perfect sales pitch was going to come every time, I was able to do millions of dollars in multiple countries, and it was a great business. And that was basically just using this technology of the VCR pressing play. The next time I was able to use technology was through our pet food business. We started a direct marketing pet food business, and we did these weekly conference calls. And the weekly kind of calls brought all the sales teams together. And it was kind of like, what we call, podcasting or webinars these days. But it was all done over the phone. And again, able to scale sales team, thousands of people across North America. And then the next time was in 1995. I read this article. It was in Time Magazine. For those who don't know Time Magazine, it was a big deal at one time. And it said that the internet was going to be the biggest industry of our lifetime. Now, at the time, I had a partner in the pet food business, very successful man, very bright, been around for a long time. I was just a young kid. I was in my 20s. And I said to him, look, I think we can sell this dog food and this cat food over the internet. Now, this man named John didn't use a computer to do accounting. I mean, he literally used like handwritten ledgers. It was something like, I guess, at biblical times you do that. Now, again, he was a very successful man. He, became a millionaire, a long time ago and knew what he was doing. And he could tell us our accounting, to the penny on a daily basis. So not to disparage how he did it, but he was the wrong guy. He was the wrong partner for me to explain that I want to sell, pet food online in 1995. So that kind of forced me into going on my own, no partners. And I said, I want to learn this internet thing because I think it's going to be really powerful. The challenge I had in the late 90s was there was no high-speed internet. So yeah, I lived in Toronto. There was three internet cafes, and the three internet cafes had high-speed internet. So for me to try to explain the internet and what I saw with the potential of it to a business person, I couldn't do it at their office. It didn't work. So I had to invite them to this internet cafe and do a presentation. Well, the problem with, a coffee shop is it's busy, there's loud, there's people. So I ended up having to rent the entire coffee shop for these, specific meetings. And I did that for a long time, and people thought I was crazy. So my presentation would be like, okay, this is a www, and that would be like, what's a website? www. And there's this other thing called a @ symbol, and that's going to be your email. And people looked at me like, wow, that's crazy. Like, why do I need two of those? I'm like, no, you need both. You need www and @ symbol. So I felt like this happened for years. And I must have done that presentation at least 3 times a week at these internet cafes. It felt like for years, but I don't know if that was that long, but it felt that way. And today, in 2025, I feel exactly the same. We're launching the Strategic AI Coach. I'm going to be doing 3 presentations a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 o'clock, almost identical to what I did years ago when I started the internet business. And the reason for that is this is new, it's exciting, and it scares most people. Anytime there's a new innovation, new technology, most people run away from it. So in the past year, I've built a very prominent, successful group of men, all extremely successful. It's called 10X Mastermind. And they're in Toronto, they're in New York, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And these are very smart, very successful self-made men. What I found, almost 99% were not using AI. And I was like, wow, these are really, really bright, successful men. And they're missing like the greatest technology that humanity's ever created. So I started realizing if I want to help these men X their business, I've got to really go deep on this. And what I found is almost everyone I know, and I'm talking about, we have friends and we have people in the group that have sold technology companies for 9 figures. We've got men in the group that are reporting to like CEOs of the top tech companies on the planet. Like these are 7-figure guys, and they're not even using AI. So I'm like, this is interesting. So when I spent the last year understanding their businesses, as well as talking to lots of other people, I started realizing that people are using, like, for example, ChatGPT. They're using it just like Google. So instead of a Google search, they're just kind of like doing the same kind of request with like ChatGPT as an example, which is great. It gets you way better results, but it's not really optimized for what the potential it could be. So this goes from my kids, which are teenagers. Well, my daughter's now 20, and all their friends, they're just using like ChatGPT, just like a Google search. What's amazing is 2 years ago, if I would have told you, 2 years ago, for example, Google had like 98% of the search market, and now only 16% of the searches are going on through Google. Think about that. Like, how crazy is that? People are now searching TikTok, they're searching Instagram, and now there's so many different AI tools. It's not just ChatGPT, there's so many. So it's amazing how Google has gone from such a dominant position. And I'm a shareholder in Google. I think it's an incredible organization. But who would have thought that their searches would go down to 16%, 18%? Now, why is that important? Well, a lot of you that are watching this maybe have built a business and you've benefited from Google SEO. I mean, I know I have. So what was great about Google SEO is I would maybe write a blog or I'd post some things on a website. And literally years later, all of a sudden somebody would contact me and they would read the article or they would click on something, fill out a landing page, and we could trace it back. We use a software called HubSpot, and I could literally trace down to like the minute how you found our website, your entire path, what you went through the website. Did you watch our YouTube? We could see it, and a lot of our customers came through Google SEO. We never ran an ad, so even though we did business in 15 countries, 5 continents around the world, we never had to run an ad. So if you've built a business and you're reliant on Google SEO, just as an example, which a lot of people have, you're kind of out of luck now because unless you are optimizing for AI, you're completely out of luck. Again, 16%, 18% searches on Google and going down. So people are now searching on these different AI platforms. So let me give you an example. So today's show is going to be on YouTube. So what's great about YouTube is there's a setting in YouTube, and you could tell YouTube, okay, Google, I'm comfortable if you share this, and you literally list like there's a list of all the different AIs out there who you're giving permission to use this content. Why is that important? Well, in the future, which is like now, when you go to Alexa or when you say hey Alexa or hey Google or hey Siri and you ask for something, it's searching a particular language model. And unless you've given that content to that language model, you don't show up. So the days of just having a website and Google optimizing it, it's over. So I'm just giving you like one tiny example of what's happening in the world, but this is why everyone needs to produce content, needs to get their information, train these AIs, train these language models, because otherwise you're just, not only is your business irrelevant, you're irrelevant. So in the future, when people are searching information about you or your company, if nothing comes up, you just don't exist. So this is really important. This is why I believe the most valuable things in the world, obviously AI, it's the greatest technology since we've ever invented in humanity. But I do think there's a few things of value. I think Bitcoin is going to become extremely valuable. And why do I think that? Because there's only 21 million of these coins. There's like a million left. Things have scarcity, which there's really not a lot of things in the world that have scarcity. That has one. But I believe your personal brand is probably the most valuable thing that you can possibly invest in. There's just nothing more important. When AI commoditizes everything and everything becomes free, your personal brand becomes the most valuable asset you have. And it probably has been in the past. Your reputation has always been the most valuable, but it's amplified now with AI. So the reason we're doing the strategic AI coach is to help everyone from a beginner. And when I say beginner, it could be college students. So it could be, hey, if you're a college student, this isn't just a tool to help you write better essays or to get better grades in your projects. That's a great use case for it. But that was like great 2.5 years ago. We are so beyond that. So everyone from a college student to someone that's running a very successful business. And I'll give you an example. I have a good friend, a business partner for 3 decades, super smart. I mean, he has been an early adopter among all the big technology trends over the years. And when I was showing him how we can replicate even the most complicated site in minutes, he was just like, he couldn't believe it. So there's a site, as an example, that he had spent, I can't tell you how much money and months or years building with coders. And we were able to replicate probably, let's say about 50% of it in minutes. So why is that important? Well, what it means is the barrier to entry is gone now. So in the past, if you wanted to be a billionaire, a couple things had to happen. Most likely you were in the software business, probably a SaaS business. You were a coder. You had probably an education in computer science, engineering. Maybe you went to Stanford and maybe you lived in San Francisco. If all those things lined up, you had a pretty good shot at becoming quite wealthy, whether you're working for one of the tech companies or doing a startup. When you look at almost all of the wealth in America created the last 40 years, most of it has come from that one area. So it's pretty amazing. So what happened if you weren't a tech person, if you weren't a coder, if you didn't have a co-founder that was technology based, you didn't live in Sanford? It was tough. I mean, sure, some people were able to raise money in other cities, other countries, but I mean, we're talking like a small fraction of the money that was put into Silicon Valley. So that's why when you look at like the 10 most valuable companies in the world, guess where they're all located and guess where all they're from. So here's why the world has changed. For those of you that have been maybe living, under a rock for the last 2.5 years and kind of missed the AI thing, the good news is we can catch you up pretty fast because this is extraordinary. But this is a technology that you don't even, not only do you not have to code anymore, now they call this vibe coding. So you don't have to be a coder. You don't have to have any technical experience. All you need to do is use your voice. You don't even have to type. I mean, I would argue that the AI models work far better when you speak to them than when you type. So I'll just give you an example. When someone's communicating or you're communicating with somebody, you have three tools. One is your body language, which is super important. It's about 55% of your communication is your body language. 38% is your voice tonality. Your voice can go higher, lower, slower. It's really important. Words are 7%. The reason we have such an epidemic of, the divorce rate is off the charts, people aren't getting married, this online dating, this whole thing, it's because people are relying on just words. They're texting each other. We have a world now where people text each other. That's the lowest form of human communication. It's the same as we had when we had the telegram over 120 years ago. So think about this. So as humans, we think we're pretty smart and we think we're forward thinking, but if you're relying on words only and just texting, it's a problem. And here's why. I could write one sentence to somebody and they could misinterpret it. They could interpret it differently. Just one sentence. This happens every single day among all of your friends, your business coworkers, and you're pissing off people you don't even know. You've lost friends. You've lost relationships because of this. So the language models are no different. If you're just relying on words only, you're not getting the full message. So one of the things I've learned, and kind of lesson one here, is use voice. Almost all of the language models now accept voice. So literally, not only can you get 10 times more done just by speaking to it, because you can speak faster than you can type, but it's getting the context of your voice. This is really, really important. So step one is use voice instead of typing. Step two is never, ever, whenever you use AI, never start with a blank slate. So this is I would say the number one mistake that people make is they go into, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or I mean, there's so many, I'm not going to name them all. They're going in with a blank slate and just putting in, a question or the problem. That's a bad idea. What you want to do and what you need to do is give it context. So before for example, let's use a health one as an example. So I could ask a question like, hey, should I take this vitamin or supplement? Well, it's a really difficult question to answer because there's no context. But imagine I was able to just upload all of my lab reports. Now, this isn't crazy stuff. Like, all of you have access to your lab reports. Everyone that's basically been taking your blood, whether it's a doctor, a hospital, clinic, they have an online record. You can get those records. Easy to do. Pretty much every doctor, every hospital, every clinic has this. So now I can take my urine test, my blood test, whatever test I have, I can scan that into, let's use ChatGPT as an example. So we start with that. Then I give ChatGPT some context, like I'm this age, this weight, maybe these are the medications I'm on, whatever the health issues are. So you've got to give some context. Then you ask it the question. So then you get an answer better than, 90% of the doctors out there, because ChatGPT, for example, has already scanned billions and billions of these different lab tests, and they've been able to see what the issues are on each test. So the amount of data that goes into these decisions are incredible. When you go to your doctor, you're relying on just them. You're relying on whatever memory they have of a patient that might be similar to you, but they don't have access to billions and billions of records of patients around the world. That's the example. So step one is never go into any AI with a blank slate. Give it as much context as you can. So one of the great things, and again, I'm a big fan I use them all, but my favorite has been ChatGPT, probably because I used it first, but more importantly, it's because it has a memory. So every single interaction I've ever had with ChatGPT is recorded. So it actually knows everything about me. It knows everything about my family, my kids, health, every business I run, investments. So it has context. It already has that. That's incredible. And then anytime there's something really important, I'll just say, I need you to memorize this. So let me give you an example. I do a lot of work helping companies grow their sales and marketing. Our claim to fame over decades is we can 10x any business's revenue. We can 10x their profits. If they're willing to do what it takes. So a lot of our context comes from sales and marketing. So I know there's just some incredible sales and marketing gurus in the past. So let me give you an example of David Ogilvy. He's one of the greatest ad writers, greatest copywriters of all time. He's passed away a long time ago. But you can ask ChatGPT to read his book, read everything he's ever done, and basically get all the principles of David Ogilvy. And every time you produce anything, whether it's an ad, it's a newsletter, it's any kind of marketing material, you can ask ChatGPT to run it through David Ogilvy. It's almost like, hey, let's bring him from heaven and get his opinion on this. And it has that kind of context. I'll give you a recent example. I was recently in an airport, and I was looking at some books, but I didn't want to miss my flight because I've done that a few times. So instead of buying the book and getting in line, I thought, oh, I'll just take a picture of the book. I'll order on Amazon, and that's typically what I do. But when I got on the plane, I thought about, well, what if I tried something different? What if I take the photo of the book? It was a marketing book. It's a really great marketer. Wrote a new book. And I said, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to read the book. And I want you to summarize it. But more importantly, I want you to think about everything I'm doing right now. At the time was 10X Mastermind. And we just done a website, and we had done some landing pages and some emails and some sales letters. And I want you to take the analysis of this author and everything you've learned in the book and tell me what it would recommend. Again, in seconds, it comes up with this incredible, like literally it's dissecting my website, my email, as if this person had done it. Then, now the plane has not even taken off yet. So I'm just still sitting there. And I said, okay, now I want you to rewrite the copy on the website, the emails, the landing pages, the sales letters, the banners, all this in this, and based on the best practices that you just learned from the book. Within seconds, it's done. You know, in our agency business, in each city, we'd have like 20 people. So I'll give you an example. We'd have 20 really, really smart people, like really smart, highly paid professionals. If I had taken that same book to all of the 20 super smart, hardworking people, and I gave them the same task, I need you to read this book, I need you to analyze it, and then use it in the context of this campaign that we're doing, and then come back to me with new landing pages, new websites, new emails, new sales letters, new banner, like all that stuff. I can tell you for sure, because I've done this for decades, it would take not a week. It would take maybe 2 weeks. There would be countless meetings. There would be hundreds of emails back and forth. And honestly, I don't think we would even achieve the same level of quality of work that I got on ChatGPT in seconds, because it rarely makes mistakes. So I'm not saying it doesn't hallucinate. It can hallucinate, but if you don't give it context, so when people talk about, oh, but doesn't it make things up? Yeah, if you don't give it the right context, it can make things up. But one of our producers of our other podcast called the 10X Life Show, he was telling me how he's representing himself in a court, in a pretty sophisticated court battle, and he's literally done all the work without a lawyer, and it's working. I found that myself. I was so frustrated one time where this simple legal filing, and I was chasing the lawyers to get it done. They're just dragging their feet. I thought, you know what? I'm going to work with ChatGPT. But I didn't go to ChatGPT and say, hey, do this. I gave it, I don't know if it's hundreds of documents, but there's an enormous amount of documents, a lot of information. And then I said, okay, this court filing has to be 12 pages. It's in Toronto, Ontario, etc. And then it was produced in minutes, maybe faster. I sent it to the attorney and I said, please review this. And he's like, oh my gosh, like who did this? Did you hire another attorney? And he got all upset. I said, look, don't worry about who did it. Just look at it carefully and tell me, what's right, what's wrong. He says, it's incredible. It's perfect. I have to change 3 words. I said, wow. So this just gives you an idea of what's going to happen with all these professions. So anyone that's in professional services, if you're a consultant, if you are doing accounting, finance, legal work, pretty much anyone in front of a computer, I can tell you that your days are numbered, because I haven't found a task yet, whether it's video production, it's photography, it's ad copy. I haven't found anything yet that a human can do better in terms of a computer. Now, AI is not coming to our house and fixing our toilets. They're not renovating our houses yet. That's why I'm hoping my sons get into that business, because every other business is going to be decimated by AI. So the reason we're doing this show, the Strategic AI Coach, is even if you're hiding under a rock for 2.5 years, you've done nothing, you've missed it, this is your chance. So every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday, I'm committing to do a live presentation with some smart people, and we're going to walk through the tools. Today, you've just heard the really like the 101 basic, like talk to it, don't type, give it as much context as you possibly can. And the more you educate ChatGPT, I'm just using that one as an example. They all work really well, but the smarter it gets. So, for example, just for fun, for those of you who've been using ChatGPT, just ask ChatGPT one question today. What do you know about me? And hopefully you'll be like me, and you'll be just completely blown away by the level of detail and what it knows about you. And then try something even more important. Say, what would you like to know about me? And then you're going to be just shocked at the questions it's going to ask you. It's going to ask you things like your goals and your aspirations and dreams. Why is that important? It's incredible. So when I ask the question, what do you want to know about me? And I thoughtfully and carefully answer those questions, because whatever garbage in, garbage out, you put in good data, you get good information. Every time I go to the login screen now on OpenAI or ChatGPT, you know how it has those suggestions? Every suggestion is exactly what haven't even thought about yet. I haven't even thought about those suggestions yet, but I should be, because ChatGPT knows my health goals, my family goals, relationship goals, my investment goals, every business goal. And it's already thought about what it needs to help me achieve those goals. So every time I go to the ChatGPT login screen, I've literally got, and I'm looking at these recommendations, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should be doing that. And it's already thought through it. So I guess today, if you did nothing else, and again, assuming you're not an AI expert already, I encourage you to feed ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok or whichever platform you like, but feed it as much information as you can. And by doing that, it's going to help you more. But there's absolutely nothing that you can't do today with AI like 10x, 100x faster. Nothing. Again, I'm still trying to find use cases where it can't help me. I'm still trying to find business functions that I can't use AI to help me. Like, it's literally helping me everywhere. Just give you one last simple one, because I know that everyone's busy, and I want to be respectful to your time. I've always struggled on the technical side. I'm not a technical guy, but I do like to, push technology to a limit. Today we're recording this from a home studio. Normally we shoot at a real studio, but I decided that I wanted to have, I'm just going to count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 screens and all this stuff. Well, what happens, you start running 6 screens and all these different things, like you have technical issues, like it's going to happen. So in the past, I always had to call my tech person, and I love my tech person. They've always been super valuable to me, but I've got to reach them, contact them. Can you come over? Can you do this? And it's like, it's a pain in the ass. So all of a sudden, I discovered another AI tool. This was by Google, and it's in Google Studio. And there's a version where you can click on it, and you can stream. It's called, there's a section you go to stream. And all of a sudden, I can share my screen with Google. This is the cool part. So Google is now looking at my screen. It's as if my tech person was standing over me looking at my screen. We're looking at it together. Now I'm stuck. All of a sudden, I can't do something. And I say, Google, here's what I'm trying to do. Like, help me out. No problem, Roman. Move the cursor here. Click on this. And then boom. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, we're going to try this. But literally, this is a tech support person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, I'm a huge fan of Apple Computer. I told you I've been using Apple for 40 years. I'm obsessed with their customer service. They're great. But Apple, even though they've got the best customer service, the only company that even comes close is Tesla. There's no other companies that have that kind of customer service. But Tesla will only help you if it's a Tesla related issue. Apple will help you if it's their hardware or software they've developed. So if I have software that I'm using that's not Apple's and I call Apple support, they can't really help me. Here's what's cool about this Google AI. It knows everything. So it doesn't matter what software package I'm in, which cloud-based system I'm in, it just knows everything. So literally, I've tested this over and over, where I can be in a brand new SaaS, something that came out a week ago, and I'm stuck in it. And for some reason, Google seems to know how to fix it. This is wild. So I don't know about you, but think about the amount of hours that you've spent in your life wasting time on, I don't know if it's connecting a printer, getting a printer to work, just on crazy shit. So think about just one AI tool that will eliminate all that, where all of a sudden, real time, you have tech support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And lastly, I'm going to tell you about why I'm convinced that the next billion-dollar company is going to be built with maybe one person and a whole bunch of AI agents. Because I love humans. Humans are incredible. I've worked with lots of them, had hundreds of employees around the world. But, humans are not perfect and they get tired. They get disgruntled. They have bad days. They don't come to work. They forget things. I haven't found that yet with AI. So when I teach an AI agent, when I teach AI something, it remembers it. It's just always on, doesn't complain. It's just there. So it's really what I believe is the future. They call this agentic AI. I think that's exactly what it is. It's these agents working together. So, and before there's and when I say before, this is like literally months ago. Months ago, we had to develop these AI agents on different platforms, and there's some incredible platforms. Until, and again, I'm literally talking about a month ago. One company, I believe it was Anthropic, said, "Hey, we're going to create this protocol, like MCP." Without getting technical with you, this is important because it's kind of like do you remember when Apple started saying, "Hey, we're going to start using we're going to use USB-C adapters," like, Samsung and all the other companies have been using it for years. And finally, Apple said, yes. So now everyone's using these Apple C connectors. So you can power your iPad, your laptops, your phones, all the same connector. Like, thank God for that. What's exactly what happened. So when Anthropic invented this MCP protocol, and all of a sudden OpenAI adopted it, which now, by the way, everyone's adopting. This is like the US, this is like the same thing. It's like the same C cable. So what that means is anyone that's building these AI agents, and there's some incredible ones that have already been built. So I'm not saying you've got to build an AI agent. It's not a bad idea, but there are already some amazing ones. But now you can connect them. So what this means is the next billion-dollar company isn't going to have like 1,000 employees. It's going to have 1,000 AI agents working together. And each AI agent does one thing really well. So some of the best use cases I've seen and things that I use are things that, for example, every time I book a meeting in my calendar, automatically, without thinking about it, it will go and do a tremendous amount of research on that person. So I've always been fanatical about research. And this is, just to tell you why this made sense to me. When I was raising money for N5R, I guess it's over 20 years ago, the person that I met with, this is just to tell you how long this is before Google. I think we had Alta Vista at the time. But the person had a unique name, put in Alta Vista. And this gentleman happened to be he was a star at York University. He was a basketball star. His name is Bo Pellick, and he's still a great friend and mentor of mine. So I'm doing my presentation about, how the internet's going to change the world. And I was talking about video emails. And this is like, 15 years before like YouTube was invented. So he's literally falling asleep during my presentation, which again, he wasn't the first guy. But then all of a sudden I said, "Bo, you understand this. You were, you were a big star. You're a basketball star at York University." So he kind of, wakes up a bit. And then he literally comes to me and he says, "How much money do you want?" And I said, "Well, we're raising $1,000,000, $100,000 minimum." He stands up, shakes my hand, and goes, "You'll have the money tomorrow." I'm like, wow. So imagine if I hadn't done the research. Okay. So that's when I learned that lesson, decades ago. So since then, I've been using different tools. So for example, one of the tools I've been using this for about 15 years. I've used it around the world. What it does, it reads every social media post that you've ever written in your entire life. And it studies the words that you use and the frequency. So basically it has an algorithm, and this is before AI. They're able to, based on the words that you use on each of these different platforms, they're able to figure out your personality. And it's deadly accurate. I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times around the world, as long as they're on social media. I mean, I really don't do business with anyone that's not on social media, so it's always worked for me. But the level of accuracy of this profile was incredible. I've literally met people's moms. I've met their wives that, "Hey, I want you to read this. Does this accurately describe your son, or does this accurately describe your husband?" And they're like, "This is incredible." Well, not only does it do that, but it tells you how to write the email, how to write the letter. Like, it tells you exactly how to deal with them. Well, now, and that's what I've been using for, 15 years. Now there's even more powerful ones. Using that tool, plus I can do all of these different analysis that used to cost a lot of money. You used to have to go. I remember we used to do this at our company. We'd have everyone go through this, like, Myers-Briggs and all these different things. Well, now with AI, every time before you even meet someone, you can get such level of detail in that person. It's mind-blowing. So do you know the difference of going into a meeting blind, where you know nothing about the person, versus you going into a meeting knowing everything? But it's time consuming. It's time consuming to do that research. But imagine you have an AI agent that does it for you, and then you get a summary, a very quick summary of exactly what you need to know about that person. And imagine that same AI agent's able to go and scan into your, like, I don't know about you, but I've got like 100,000 emails just in one of my boxes. And it can go and find all the emails from that person and find the relevant information. So I know, oh, the last time I spoke to them, they're going, to Tuscany, or their kid had just won some championship, whatever the relevant information, and it adds to the summary. So that's just one example. So some of you are going, well, I don't do that. I don't do that level of research every time I meet somebody. Well, maybe you should. And maybe before it was so time consuming you couldn't, but now with an AI agent that does it for you, um, you become superhuman. The reason I think this is important is not just because I was able to raise millions of dollars and do business around the world because of research. I'll just give you one example. I read a book in the 70s about Khashoggi. Adnan Khashoggi came from poverty. This guy came from poverty, lived in the Middle East. And he realized the importance of knowing who he's speaking to. He realized the importance of his customer. And again, pre-Google, pre-social media, it's hard to learn about somebody. So he'd have to make phone calls. He'd call an assistant. He'd call people that knew that person, that worked with that person, a friend of that person. He'd ask them questions. So I'll give you an example. He would ask, oh, do they play tennis? Do they like golf? How do they dress? He'd get all this this level of detail before every meeting. But he did something that nobody did. He would actually dress like that person. So if he knew that person like loved brown or always wore brown suits, he would literally get dressed for that meeting in a brown outfit. And he had multiple meetings a day. So people would think that's crazy. Like, that's a lot of work putting on, brown suit or brown outfit for somebody that likes brown. Well, Mr. Khashoggi became the world's richest man. He went from absolute poverty to become the wealthiest man in the world because he did one thing differently. He knew how to build rapport. So when you think about your friends, people you like, they speak like you, they talk like you, they dress like you. That's why they're our friends. So if you can get that level of intimacy, if you can do that research, and it doesn't take hours like it did for Khashoggi, or doesn't take hours like how it did a few months ago, but an AI agent can do that for you, you're next level. So our show, whether it's the best half show, which is about making the second half of your life, 10 times better. And by the way, for most people, second half of your life is actually 38. It's not 50, it's 38. Or you're watching this show, Strategic AI Coach. Every dream, everything you've ever dreamt in your life, if God gave you that idea, God also gave you the ability. So we had a lot of obstacles before. So for me, again, not a coder, didn't grow up in Silicon Valley, never had a tech co-founder. So it was really difficult for me to raise tons of money or become one of those companies like the household names in the software world. All those excuses are gone now. With vibe coding and the fact that AI can code for us. I mean, I built my own app just by speaking into one of these vibe coding apps. I built websites now just with my voice that are as good as any websites that I had teams of people build. Never in my life have I been able to build a website without a few humans. I needed somebody helping with copy, one designer, and usually a tech person. We'd register a domain, transferring the DNS. There's always like a hosting thing. It's like a technical thing. All of a sudden, literally in hours, actually less than that, I could register a domain, build an entire website. I'm talking world-class website, and be live in a couple hours. In all my life, I've never done this before. I've done it now. So these are things that are open to all of us. So what I can tell you, for those of you who are like, hey, I don't want to learn this, that's okay. As I drove from the car wash this morning, I see a big line. This is not far from my house, and I live in a nice area. there's all these people lined up basically in the bread line, like they're lining up for food. In Canada right now, there's about 1 million people every day that are lining up at food banks. Well, if you think that number is big now, I would say in 2 years, it'll be more like 10 million, because anyone that's not learning AI and not becoming a superpower with AI, I'm telling you, they're not going to be here in 2 years. Their businesses are not going to be here. Their job's definitely not going to be here. So there's really two people. There's going to be either people learn this, and everyone else, I mean, if they're retired, that's great, but you're going to be into forced retirement. That's the reality. That's the reality of what's going on. It's kind of like if you were a farmer and then all of a sudden 100 years ago, all of a sudden they got tractors and they got all these things, like we went from like a 95% employment rate of everyone's in agriculture to like 5%. Like everyone else had to get new jobs. So I encourage you to join us on this journey of the Strategic AI Coach, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're going to take you behind the scenes as we create the next billion-dollar business. Thank you. It's Roman Bodnarchuk signing out from Strategic AI Coach. Hope you have a great weekend.